So today, I have 2 questions to start, and they're just a conversation starter. So we can take it from there. This is where we get our 5 minutes or so. And we go back and forth. But as you think about how your creativity expertise has helped you, assisted you in your area of focus, or areas of focus is one of them. And the other is, what is the easiest and hardest aspects of your journey from learning about creativity to implementing and to all the other things you do professionally? So it's one of those things that takes longer than 5 minutes, but we can take a shot at parts of it.
The first one, I can.
Okay.
How has creativity expertise assisted me in areas of focus? I think it has, more than anything, allowed me to not always come up with a reason why something can't be done. To force myself to think of possible solutions, and to try to encourage other people to do the same. And I think that would be one of the hardest part of the journeys also, when you are talking to a friend or just a mild acquaintance, and you're saying, well, what other way could you do this? What other things have you thought about? What are some possibilities? You know, people kind of get tired of me asking questions. And they'll say, well, just give me an answer, especially with students. And I'm saying, well, I want to hear what you think. And so I think that's difficult because people aren't used to having someone ask them probing questions, especially if you're in a school environment. I've heard many times, I don't know about Joette and Sue, but I've heard students many times say, well, you're the teacher, you're supposed to know. And being a science teacher, and I'm saying, gee, that's a wonderful idea. Wonder what would happen if we try it. And they're like, what is wrong with this woman? You know? So that's been the hardest part. The easiest part is thinking of solutions. Someone tells me something, and I have to really just like sit and be quiet, because I'll come up with like 5 possible solutions, and it just kind of flows. But that's not what I don't think that's what creativity is supposed to be about. You giving solutions, but helping other people reach them.
Mm-hmm.
So do you work a lot with your consulting business, and you do a lot of questioning of your clients, and what kind of things do you do with?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I finally kind of said, you know, I think I like this executive coaching thing, because you want to help people reach their full potential. You want to ask them questions for them to discover, okay, yeah, I do spend too much time in the office and not enough time with my family, versus me telling them, well, if you just change and here's your schedule and everything will be fine. That self-discovery part is just, you know, you get the aha moments, the wows, and then they can move from there. So yeah, that point, when someone's paying you to ask them questions, I think that's a little easier than when you're getting paid to supposedly give knowledge to students and they don't want you to ask them questions.
And can you talk a little bit about, because you know, I just love your dog.
Oh.
And so
Can you get a close-up of my dog?
Yeah.
Which camera can I?
Put him on there for a second.
This is Ava.
And tell
You got
us
her?
about the process. Yep,
Okay.
he said yes.
All right.
Tell us about the process of training the dog as part of your project.
Okay, well, Ava is now 7.5 years old. We got her when she was 7 months old. And one of the things that the breeder that we got her from, well, first of all, it's almost like planning to have a child. You do all this research. I was reading all kind of books about the breed. She's a Rottweiler. I was reading research. And I wanted to make sure that we got a dog that had really came from a good line, that it wasn't an aggressive dog. And one of the things that our breeder suggested that we might want to have her be a therapy dog. So then I had to do research to find out, well, what's a therapy dog? And as I told you earlier, once I started, I'm like, wow, this would be a great thing because it would incorporate my teaching skills, but it would also allow me to share the breed and help people who may need that extra little touch to get them to communicate. And you asked me, how did I, because I'm going on a rabbit trail here. Yes, what was your original question?
So just to say a little bit about that process of training your dog, was that difficult, or did you find it was worked out well for a project?
I found out that I thought I knew how to manage a dog or train a dog. And so going to a professional trainer, I found out a lot of my voice intonations and a lot of my body language was sending mixed messages to the dog. You know, like I said, Ava, come here. And she's like, yeah, right, you know. So I had to learn that I had to speak firmly and have that firm look when I really wanted her to do something. The hardest part of the process was learning how to be a good master for the dog. Mm-hmm. And the other hardest part was knowing when to stop my project. That was very difficult. And Dr. Mary Murdoch said to me, Sandra, it's not over. You can continue doing this, but can you just give me this and let me sign it, you know? And I was like oh, because it was like, this is mine. I'm going to keep working on it, you know? I'm going to keep working on it. And I was one of the first of 2 students to do the master's project. And so I wanted to set a good example of what a project should be like. But I know I have a tendency to get like this big. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think that was fair for students to come along that someone says, okay, your project should look like this, when the original guidelines were like this. Then once she, you know, made me feel comfortable, this is your project, you don't have to worry about setting a standard for anyone else, let them set their own standards, then
that
went
helped.
forward. And that was like, took a big weight off of me.
And that's when we changed from a 6-credit to a 3-credit project. So you were looking at the, right?
Oh, now they only get 3 credits?
Yeah, 3 credits.
Ah.
So. But that's good advice for students.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Well, given that the company exists to encourage and support creativity, knowing about creativity is really quite useful. I'd recommend it if you want to do that. However, within the sort of broad field of creativity, I would say the thing that has proved to be probably most useful for us and for our clients would be the application of adapter-innovator theory. Mm-hmm. I think when Curtin's work came out, and obviously there are other theories which touch on aspects of difference and style as well, but particularly when Curtin's work came out, it gave a dramatically different way of thinking about innovation in general. And this has proved to be hugely important, particularly working in the large government and also the not-for-profit sector. Mm-hmm. Because what it does is it gives you a way of communicating with your clients and framing change initiatives and problem-solving processes in a way which will make sense to them. So, for instance, one of the organizations we worked with relatively recently was a refuge for domestic violence, and that was it was in the US in this case. And it's not unusual in charities or not-for-profits that have grown relatively rapidly to find that the founder and a few of the key staff will have a personality preference which is distinctly different from the people who are subsequently recruited in to work in the organization. Mm-hmm. And this would be a classic example of where you would get a mismatch in, say, adapter-innovator preferences, which often result in conflict or at least confusion. And if the people who hired you are distinctly different from the people who subsequently have to implement the ideas that are generated, let's say, it's very easy to add to the problem rather than solve it. So I think the concept of style, and particularly adapter-innovator theory, has been hugely important. Another aspect of this, which is not really covered in the master's program, but if you want to be involved, probably if you just want to be involved in doing good in the world, you really need to understand, is politics, organizational politics, and that exists wherever you get more than one person, basically. Now, the organizational politics in a structure such as the United Nations is quite astonishing. Not so much because it's that different from other large organizations, but because of the level of complexity. So, for instance, when we're working with the part that we work with a lot, when I'm discussing with people, what would we have to do to get this decision implemented, they'd say, well, first of all, we have to get the ambassadors from 37 different countries to agree to it. And this adds a level of complexity which really did just make me feel very tired. However, the flip side to this is by working with organizations like that, it gives you a whole different appreciation for long-term planning, because I will talk with colleagues and I say, this is what we've got to do. And they say, yes, we quite understand, but it won't happen for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And I'll say, all right, why not for 2.5 years? And I'll say, well, because the presidential elections in this country will happen in 2 years' time, at which point they will elect this person who will reappoint the ambassadors over here, and that will allow this to happen. And so it gave me what I saw initially as just a very stuck organization, and you see this in many places, is actually populated by people who have a completely different understanding of political processes. So if you want to make any sort of medium-scale change, and this could be down at your local town board, you've got to understand the reality of politics, and you really have to pay attention to it. And how good your ideas are, or the ideas that your group that you're working with, is irrelevant unless you understand the winners and losers from that and the reality of the politics. So an adapter-innovator theory, I think, gives you a really interesting way of thinking about people's perspectives. And it has given me a huge respect for people who have a very different preference from my own. They're not being resistant, they simply see the world in a different way. And the real test of whether you're mastering your creative capabilities is whether you can truly defer judgment around somebody who has a dramatically different point of view and incorporate their thinking. It's very hard to do, but that's when you know, I think, that you're actually making progress. And in terms of the things that I think have been easy to do, it's actually very easy to talk with people about creative thinking. And I was discussing this with some colleagues the other day, and I suspect that when you're working with organizations, particularly when they're under a lot of pressure, which is when we tend to be asked to come and work with them, one of the things that you really bring, if you have an understanding of creative problem solving, is you bring a sense of hope. You are introducing into an organization the possibility that change might be, we might be capable of actually doing something about this situation. We are not necessarily constrained by our initial perception of the problem. And that's a wonderful thing, to be able to bring a sense of hope. But you also have to be very careful about that, because if you go back to the political realities and you find that you're working at a level within an organization that is not supported by people who are more senior or in a different division, you can actually do more harm than good, because what you actually do is give people, if you like, a false sense of hope, which then results in cynicism and a disengagement from the process. Now, this was brought home to me when we were working, in fact, out in Sudan, and we were talking with some colleagues out there, and they said, it's all very well for you to go talking about this creative problem-solving stuff, But you need to understand, when you're talking about risk, and you're talking about it with colleagues back in Rome or anywhere else, their perception of risk is very different. If we implement an idea and we get it wrong, people will die. Now, when you're doing your risk mitigation work on any sort of creative problem solving, when you're working through the implementation and the action planning, it's relatively unlikely with clients, say, in the developed world, perhaps outside of the medical environment, that you have to worry about people dying. But if you want to do something in terms of affecting social change, this introduces a whole level of risk that you have to have respect for, and this is where it sort of knocks up against a degree of cynicism if the rest of the organisation can't, for instance, get the resources which are required in order to successfully implement this. So, in a way, you can be sort of playing with fire. It's really, really interesting to try and take this from post-it notes on a flip chart in Chase Hall to somewhere where people's lives are on the line, and see that you can actually make a significant positive change. But this is taking off all the training wheels, and what you're doing can be dangerous. So, various thoughts.
Thank you. I actually have a dream job right now. I teach children kindergarten through 4th grade critical and creative thinking skills in relationship to content. They've switched my content every year just to keep my, keep life exciting and spice up my life. And now they've changed it to a health content, which has really opened a door for me because it really leads itself almost hand in glove to what creative problem solving is. I've also been fortunate enough over the past 20 years to be able to write my own curriculum. Therefore, I patterned it after what Sid Parnes did and taught us in the beginning program since 1970, and opening up doors for your mind and for kids' minds. The easiest part is designing the curriculum. It has been so much fun. The delightful part has been watching the kids' faces when you actually allow them to think, and they come up with things, and they are delighted to be there, and they are delighted to learn, and they are so excited and so happy. I'm a divergent thinker, Sandra, so I can understand the this. It takes me a really long time to do the convergent thing. But as you were talking, I noticed that oftentimes when we get into creative problem solving, our divergence can kind of take us away from what the reality is. And one of the things that I think I learned from the creative problem solving process, other than Sid constantly whispering in our ear, trust the process, is that every step of the way, when you have divergence, you have to have convergence immediately. I used to teach them separately. I now teach them even to kindergartners. I teach them convergence, divergence. We do all kinds of what now Robert Marzano is terming non-linguistic representations. I very seldom teach in one learning style. I teach in at least 5 per lesson. It's not difficult. All you have to do is look at their faces and know what to do. And they will tell you what to do depending on the children in your class. And as you probably are aware, now we have inclusion children who, when they were first put into my class, I thought I was going to probably hang myself because I didn't have any training in education back then. My best training in education was taking the courses in creativity and getting my degree in that, which, by the way, didn't exist when I first started. So we kind of created it along the way. We made it up as we went along. And it's just helped me immensely to see that the way that education is going, and again, I'm trying to take an incredibly positive point of view with the testing and the test scores and the reporting and the data teams on children who are 5 years old is really sad. So you have to balance it and say, well, this is kind of convergence, but how do we allow children to grow? These are the children of the future who are facing all kinds of problems. We need divergence. We need to teach them to think divergently, and we need them to teach convergently to deal with the politics of the world, which are not getting any easier, more sophisticated by the day. And I think just using the creative problem-solving process has allowed me to do that, even with the kids. And by the way, my kindergartners know the words divergence, convergence, criteria. We apply it with conflict resolution. They love it. We sing for I'm a Little Teapot, I'm a Divergent Thinker.
Wow.
We do the locomotion in the upper grades. Come on, baby, do creative thinking with me. We have all kinds of things going on. They love it. They're up singing and dancing. It is a lot of fun. And
And you play the guitar too, don't you?
oh, I take all kinds of songs. I'm probably going to get copyrighted forever because of the conflict resolution song to the 59th Street Bridge song, but boy, do we have fun with it. Yes, I really do. It's really a lot of fun. But when you talked about the concept of hope, when I received a phone call about 6 or 7 years ago from the Creative Education Foundation, which used to be of Upstate, which is an affiliate with the Center, International Center, asking me to go to South Africa to do a program for young middle school age children in the Cape Flats. You have 3.5 days, make a difference. Talk about not being able to breathe. I thought, what can we do in 3.5 days that can make a difference with these kids who, for all intents and purposes, are really hopeless because they live in huts. They live in cardboard boxes. They have nothing. But they got a grant. They bought the children a brand new set of sweats and toothbrushes and sneakers and brought them over to a really wonderful prep school near Cape Town. Absolutely beautiful place. And these kids had never seen anything like this before.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, we have 3.5 days with them. What can I do using the creative problem-solving process? And our theme was hope.
Mm-hmm.
I thought if there was ways to bring hope, then we could do that. So we did a series of divergent and convergent thinking techniques with hope. We talked about their situations, who they were, where they could go. And it was also pending on this was if we did an okay job the first year, we could probably get it for 5. We completed our 5. And the kids were amazing, just completely amazing. And how they responded to it, because they were not used to thinking. They were very, they sat there literally, and what we heard was yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Did not even know that you could think and respond in that type of way. So teaching divergent thinking, here I am thinking, okay, I'm going to go in there and we're going to be doing all these things. Just to give them the door to their own minds to help them open up to divergent thinking was miraculous for them. So convergent thinking came a little easier for them. And over the years, over the past 30 years, and all the thinking experiences that I've had, including consulting in various parts of Brazil, Rio, and Sao Paulo, with corporations like Eletrobras, that process, the divergent, convergent process throughout every step of the process, I would say, is the key and critical component. It sounds so simple, but it's just the execution of it and the implementation of it is critical.